So here we go, 50 things you didn't know about me, continued on from the last video. This video is going to be mostly about things that you didn't know about me but asked. So I'll be answering some of your questions about me as a traveler, as a travel blogger, as you know, someone who's working in video production. So here we go. Now, I really do want to give a shout out to my fellow Patreon patrons. The fact that you guys believed in me, I'm gonna tell you, has meant so much to me. I think I'm gonna start off with number one, which wasn't gonna be my number one, which wasn't even gonna be on this list, but I've been holding back a lot about my life, and I've been shielding my YouTube channel and my blog from this. My number one is that last year I was seriously considering, and I was this close to quitting GRRRLTRAVELER. Having to juggle a lot in terms of writing a written, some of you guys don't know this, but I have a written blog. I also have a YouTube channel, which I do weekly as well. This is a full-time job, and meanwhile, while I'm doing that, I also have my life that I need to afford in the United States, and the United States is not cheap. This life has been suffering. The freelance life has been suffering. The money-making life has been suffering. It's been difficult for me to juggle both. This department usually feeds this department. It's its own enterprise, which is funded by me and this thing that's shrinking right now. This thing that's shrinking is what I really should prioritize. So last year I was considering closing GRRRLTRAVELER because it was just too overwhelming, and like I was on an emotional roller coaster, and it was hard not to dip into depression several times because things just weren't working in my freelance life. And that's where I'm kind of at a weird balance. GRRRLTRAVELER runs me down the most because I'm juggling so many tasks there, and I'm trying to get opportunities for GRRRLTRAVELER and promote her. And what you're seeing in a video right now is just like, oh, she just popped out a camera and started, you know, talking, and that's part of it. And then we'll come to editing, and then we'll come uploading and finding keywords, and then transcribing them, and then creating a little thumbnail to put on so that you want to click on it, and then putting it out to my social networks and saying, and then I'll create my blog that connects with this. In a way, you know, this whole set of responsibilities, and I'm definitely working at it like a business because every week I have to update a post. I have to, if I put out a video, that I have to do a connecting written post that kind of like complements the video. Like some of my video guides will have written posts that are a little more detail oriented in terms of information and how-tos. Sometimes it takes me a while to get to this written post because I just have so many things that I have to do on my plate. I think I put a video out last year on how I afford travel burnout, and I didn't tell you at the time that I was going to quit, but some of you just started donating and meant to me that you found it valuable enough to want to save. That's why my Patreon patrons have been so helpful for me. You know, it takes some of the small expenses off my shoulders, so I can feel free about maybe spending money in this direction. If anyone supports what I do, then please donate to my Patreon account. It's only going to go back into the video making process, which is going to go out to people. Now let's get on to the more cheery stuff. Do I ever encounter loneliness when I travel? The answer is yes, I do. I don't know of any human being that doesn't. I can encounter loneliness even when I travel with someone. Loneliness is just there and inevitable for any trip and in any type of situation. But for me, I think as a solo traveler, my one lonely spot will be if I'm waiting at baggage claim. That's the only time I really recognize it. It's that moment where I realize that there's no one there to pick me up and show me around. So these days, in order to avoid that, I now travel with carry-on luggage. There's always tricks and ways around it. How did you get started doing this? Who or what inspired you to love travel? In terms of travel, I've kind of always had a travel life ever since I was young, and my family was really good. We went traveling mostly for volleyball. Because I was really into volleyball, and so every year we'd go to a different state. My mom really wanted me to be very versatile in my thinking and the activities that I was engaged in, so she really exposed me to that kind of open-mindedness to trying different things. And my dad kind of has more of this explorer's philosophy. Like, he's more of the artist, he's creative and likes to try different things. And for him, there's no such thing as getting lost. We were exploring. They're constantly exposing me to different things in the best way that they could, because they went through some hard times too. I feel like I had very exceptional parents. When did you realize you were interested in world travel? Well, I can tell you there's nothing like a bad breakup. And I heavily recommend it to anyone who's going through a breakup. Is the best thing you can do for yourself is to travel abroad and to get into this new space where you're not dealing with the past and putting your pieces back together again, but you're injecting new life into you so that you're looking ahead and not behind. It's a good way to kind of like get out of that space. Due to my passion and career at the time in fine arts, I was very much interested in, I'd always been interested in going to France. And so I'd learned the language or parts of it, and there was no question about it, that was the country I was going to travel to. And nothing like a relationship breakup to inspire that. Where did I get sick? The very first time I got sick in India. That was when I was taking my yoga teacher's certification program in Dharamsala, and I was there for a good month. It was a samosa, a street samosa I got sick off of. That ended up into amoebic dysentery. It wasn't wholly uncomfortable, but it wasn't a happy situation either. Eventually I had to go to the hospital, the local hospital, and they diagnosed me. They gave me meds for it, or prescriptions for it, and cleared it out. What made me decide to vlog and blog about my travels? I wanted to show my parents like photos and, you know, take them on my journey, and so this was the best way for me to be able to do that, to share my experiences with my family, because my family only likes going to Las Vegas. If you know anything about Hawaii people, they love to go to Las Vegas. And when I moved to Korea, it was a different thing, because all of a sudden, trying to research how to get around Korea, there's hardly any English. The blog developed because it was my way to share with my fellow expats my breadcrumbs of how I got around in Korea. And my goal through GRRRL Traveler is to share with you what I've already gone through so that you have a resource. That's kind of the mission of GRRRL Traveler, is to prepare people for a trip, as well as to inspire them to see that their trip is doable. I'm not traveling with a crew. I'm not traveling with anyone else. You know, sometimes I'll pick up travelers along the way, but I'm doing it while I'm already in the country. If I can do that, then it means that it's possible for anyone else to do, right? So how do I protect myself when I travel alone? I think the best thing is to summarize this. If you haven't already watched my video on safety tips for traveling alone, I suggest you do. But other than that, I would say a strong belief in God, angels, belief that if anything is meant to happen, it will, and utter faith in myself to survive no matter what the cost. Occasionally, travel insurance and having my thumb ring put on my ring finger, those are added safety insurances. The GRRR part in GRRRL Traveler actually comes from a little bit of living in New York and having to survive, being in survival mode constantly, as well as my first solo trip being in India. It kind of defined this kind of spirit of like this travel survival. Everything is surviving that trip, is making it happen, finding my way around places, dealing with culture shock, trying to find foods that I can eat. Surviving that trip is kind of what GRRRL Traveler is. How did I get my interest in travel? Travel pretty much came to me in every route that I was passionate about. Every hobby that I kind of picked up, or every passion or career option I picked up, happened to magically align with travel already. I used to be like a fine artist where I would exhibit like a volleyball player, like a dancer in a dance company. Even though I blog about travel and I know that I want to travel, I have to travel, especially for my content, I still feel like travel is not my ultimate goal. This is not what I'm ultimately trying to do. I'm trying to do this, and this is kind of like married to it. Okay, sorry, this is getting kind of long. Know more about my background and why I left it behind. Do you think that it's fascinating that I used to work for MTV, and being a person who left their career to try and pursue travel? I was living and working in New York City for a good 8.5 to 9 years, and I was working in the television and video production industry. I was working a lot with MTV and creating shows, as well as working with other big cable networks. Not only was I producing shows, but I was also filming them. as pretty much how I do some of my YouTube videos too. I loved it. I love my career. I still do. I traveled a lot. I mean, there are months when I would only come home to do my laundry, but other than that, I'd be living in hotels. I miss my white linen shoots. Living this sort of jet set life that you see. I don't know if you see that movie like Up in the Air with George Clooney, and how like they're constantly traveling, and it's all about like frequent flyer miles and hotels and whatnot. But that's how my life was. That was my dream, of living out of hotels versus like a white picket fence. When the economic downslide happened for the United States, work was harder to find. Like I said, my fear is stagnant, so I always needed to move and do something, and I thought, well, I'd always had this dream to live abroad. So I went to South Korea and started to teach English, and after Korea I started backpacking like around 7 months, and I think returning home to Hawaii was probably, if there's anything that I might regret, that might have been it. It definitely shot my career in the foot. I didn't want to give it up, and I think that's why I never stayed in South Korea, even though I enjoyed living there. Generally a camera operator is like a man's role, but in Hawaii it's very much a man's role. It's been difficult breaking into the small community they have here. It's probably the most uncomfortable period I've been through in my life at the moment. How can I set aside so much time to travel to so many different countries? I think I answered that a little bit in the beginning. Is I'm a freelancer, so it's, you know, generally I work around the window of work. If I have work stationed, or I think work is going to be coming in, I will not want to plan my trips around those times. However, a lot of times work, as I said in one of my other videos about trip planning, a lot of work comes in at the very last minute. A lot of it falls through at the last minute too. Definitely pros and cons about freelancing. So when I pick up part-time jobs or part-time gigs, I will choose gigs that are flexible in their schedule. So right now I have like a part-time job, and the owner is fine with me being flexible. I might be picking up another part-time job, and that owner also is fine with me being flexible if I can find coverage, or, you know, like ask someone else to cover my time. So what other activities do I enjoy? I think I already answered that with, I pretty much mostly blog these days and vlog. That kind of fills, I would say, a good chunk of my life. And outside of that would be work and finding work. Let me know what you thought about the video and what you'd like to see in terms of travel videos or travel tip videos in the future. And I will listen. Down in my description box, because sometimes I leave links to either a written guide that's connecting to the video, or just kind of like an update of the equipment that I'm using to create this video. Okay, check out my Facebook page. I'll have updates there sometimes, as well as sometimes I share photos on Instagram that I don't really share on my Facebook page. I don't know why, everything's just so dispersed. I'm trying to consolidate them a little better, but sometimes I just don't like to repeat content. Just to let you know, each week I will be posting another video, and I usually publish anywhere from Thursday to Friday, Pacific Standard Time, Hawaii. So until then, travel safe, smart, and fun. I will see you on the road, and may the grrr be with you.